Today's video we're going to look at the top 10 modifications you can do to your four-wheel drive. It's a question I get all the time about people buying a new four-wheel drive or a second-hand four-wheel drive, wanting to do some modifications to it, but they're just not sure where to start. So I thought I'd take the time, lay out my top 10-ish modifications I think people should do. Keep in mind, this is personal preference, and it's going to change considerably depending on what you're planning on doing with your four-wheel drive. Is it going to be a tough rock crawler? Is it going to be mainly touring with a few dirt roads and beaches? Or is it going to be a mix of both? So it's hard to give one list that's going to cater to everyone, but I've tried my best to just give people some ideas and things that I think people should do first. We are in lockdown at the moment. I hope everyone's staying safe out there and surviving through it. It means I obviously am a little bit limited on content I can produce and trips and places to go, so I'm trying to do a few of these videos to fill in the gaps until we can get out on those big trips again. I did write out a list so I wouldn't forget any. I got 13 on here, so a little bit over 10, but we'll start cracking through them. The first thing I always recommend, and I think this is universal to whatever you are using your four-wheel drive for, is engine protection and vital component protection. The first one is a secondary fuel filter / water separator. This is more important to diesel engines over petrol engines. Diesel engines have such fine abilities that they can use and deal with diesel fuel only, that any water or gunk outside of that is just going to cause chaos. The first thing that is going to go is going to be injectors, fuel pump, and can then lead to catastrophic whole engine damage. I had it happen recently on a Cape York trip. I got water in the fuel, and I reckon if I didn't have two fuel filters, I would have cooked the injectors and the fuel pump. I was pulling most of the water out of the first one, and then a little bit was getting through to the factory one that I was pulling out as well. But if I hadn't had this first one, it all would have ended up in the factory one, and it definitely would have escaped through. It's a bit of a debated topic of whether you put the aftermarket one before or after your factory fuel filter. I won't go into it too much, otherwise we'll be here all day. There's reasons for both. People do a mix of both. I think the more common one is to put it before your factory fuel filter, but one advice would be, if it's before your factory fuel filter, get one that has an alarm on it that notifies you when it picks up water. That way you'll get notified straight away. It's still got to get through your aftermarket one and then your factory one before it's going to cause any damage. So it gives you time to shut your engine off, drain them out, get help, find out what's going on. Also less likely to impact warranties and the pressure at which your fuel goes into your engine if you put your aftermarket one before your factory one. Second modification, and another engine protection one, is your oil catch can. Now this is a highly debated topic in the four-wheel drive industry. I think it's definitely worth looking into and considering. I would say maybe 70 to 80% are pro catch cans and then the rest are against them. Provided you get a good quality one and it's set up properly, then I think it is worth it. What a catch can does is it tries to pull out a lot of the oil, fumes or residue that are sort of floating and going back through your engine, pulls them out into a catch can, and you can then drain it out into a bucket and get rid of it. Without it, your engine just builds up a lot of gunk and clogs up over time. I did put one on my nav. It sat here behind the fuel filter, but I actually took it off. One of the problems with them, especially with these Nissan Navaras, is Nissan is denying a lot of things under warranty when people have catch cans. Your rear main seal being the main one, a couple other seals and that can possibly go in your engine. If you have a catch can, they're blaming the catch can on blowing out those seals. I'm not going to go into whether that's right or wrong or the whole thing around that topic, but it's just something to consider. Of that catch can, maybe check with your local dealer whether that can impact your warranty, and you may want to consider waiting till warranty is over. Definitely an important mod though in my opinion, and something to consider or look into. Third modification, once again, engine protection, is your breathers. Mine tucked up in under here, those little green breather points there, the hoses coming up to them. Differential breathers for front and rear, gearbox breather and transfer case breather. All those vital components of your driveline do have breathers, the little hoses that come out of them which allow them to breathe. The problem with that is from factory, they often don't go very high or far at all. So if you're doing deeper water crossings or mud, or even a lot of bull dust, can end up going down them, blocking them up, or, you know, feeding water into your diffs and gearbox and that, which is, you know, not what you want at all. Definitely wreck them. So if your car doesn't have any at all, you need to get some, or extend your factory ones up to a nice spot. Some people put them into their air boxes, I've heard of. I've put mine up in the back corner of the engine bay here. There's numerous places you can put them to. Fourth modification, final one for the engine protection, is a snorkel. Snorkels do help your engine breathe better, but the main thing is they raise your air intake point, which from factory is somewhere down here in your engine bay. Mine's obviously up here, so they raise it up nice and high, which when it comes to water and mud will keep it from being sucked in to your airbox, down into your engine, hydrolocking your engine, and game over for you out on the tracks and possibly destroying your whole engine. And then when it comes to dust, rather than it being down here, which is closer to your dust and mud and that, it's up here higher, further away. And it's not even about having to go through water that's up like way over your bonnet for them to come into effect. I've found you only have to go through water about top of the tyre, and it splashes up enough that it gets sucked down your air inbox anyway. I've seen it happen that many times. People hitting a mud hole fast, or, you know, going through sort of knee-deep water with a bit of power, it forces up in there, into your airbox and down into your engine. So even if you're not planning on doing deep water crossings, it's relatively cheap mod. Same as the fuel filter, catch can, breathers, snorkel, you know, those 4 mods you should be able to do for around $1,000 or so, maybe a little bit over depending on which brands you're going. And then that's just going to keep your engine more protected in the long term. Another tip with your snorkel, which I've seen many times on the track and recently up our Cape York trip, is people get them but they're not watertight. They're not properly sealed. So you go through a deep water crossing and then they end up sucking in water anyway and it's game over. I saw it happen 3 times on our Cape York trip. And have a little bit of a look at what your factory airbox is like. This is a custom stainless airbox that's fully sealed, fully watertight. So there's no like drain holes at the bottom where water's going to start seeping in through. You know, keeps the water right out. So consider modifying your airbox, your factory one, a little bit when you get a snorkel. Just sealing up those drain plugs at the bottom, or putting in a bit of a custom removable drain plug or something. That's what this has. So that's sort of your main engine protection modifications covered. And then we're going to move now more into body protection and underneath protection. Modification number 5 is rated recovery points front and rear. I'm a bit slack at the moment. I do not have rear ones. I had them on a rear bar, that got taken off. I haven't put new ones on yet, but they're on the list of things to order. I really need to get that done. But I do have front ones, rated recovery points that are for recovering a vehicle off. Your car will come with factory ones, but they're not rated and they have been known to break, which can then cause major damage or even injure / kill people if someone's standing too close by and a recovery point goes flying off or into the back of another four-wheel drive. So they just allow your four-wheel drive to be pulled out forwards or backwards safely. 2 at the front and 2 at the back is ideal. That way you can put a bridle on and even out the recoveries. Modification number 6 is bash plates or underbody protection plates for your four-wheel drive. I've got 3 that go right back underneath, so then all those vital engine components under there are covered. The front sump, front diff, Your transfer case, gearbox, got a nice big stainless steel plate there that when if you smack a rock or, you know, a hard bit of ground or a tree root, rather than bashing in, you know, $3,000 diff or a $4,000 transmission, you know, whatever it be, the parts on these modern cars are not cheap. It'll hit a bash plate instead. And once again, these are relatively cheap mods. You know, you can get a full set of 3 bash plates for, you know, maybe $500 for a set of good quality ones, which is obviously a bit of money, or you may get some second hand or make them up yourself. But when you compare them to damaging, you know, thousands upon thousands of dollars of parts under there and wrecking a trip and being stuck out in the middle of nowhere, you know, just like recovery points, only, you know, cheap. You might get some good recovery points for $150. It's just about protecting and being prepared. Number 7, once again, protection for your four-wheel drive. For all your door seals under here is a good set of rock sliders. Cars will come with alloy side steps, which will bend the first pebble that hits them. You've then got stainless steel side steps, which are strong and will protect it, but I've just seen that many bend that many times. Once you put your weight of your vehicle on those steel side steps, they'll normally bend, whereas rock sliders are made to handle the weight of your car. I've put my whole weight of my four-wheel drive on these rock sliders numerous times and, you know, can't bend or break them. So they'll just mean that you can protect, obviously, the side of your car, and if you're coming down big rocks or ruts and that, you've got something there that you're going to bounce off and slide along. Once again, not a super expensive modification. Now that we've got our engine protected and underneath our car and on the sides, we can jump into a little bit of some more exciting modifications. But as I said, the thing of those, they're just so vital, and, you know, for around $2,000, or I guess up to $2.5, $3,000 if you want to go some real, you know, upmarket stuff. But for around $2,000, you can get all that done, and you just have a lot more peace of mind going on trips that you and your car are going to be safe and get back home. Modification number 8 is going to be suspension. I think you should do next. By this point, you've started to get a little bit of weight on your car with that protection. You've maybe chucked a bit of camping gear in there, and it's just starting to sag your suspension down a bit. It's not really capable of handling any more modifications. Before you fit your bigger tires and your BULLBAR and, you know, put like a train canopy on and all that sort of stuff, there's just no way your factory suspension is going to handle it. There's a few different reasons to get suspension. The first one being that it will lift your car up a bit, which will then allow you to fit bigger tires. Now, the suspension doesn't actually lift the underneath of your car up. Your diff and your driveline and all that is still on the same height. It lifts your body up off that. But then because your body gets raised up, creates more room to fit a bigger tire, which will then raise that other stuff up. We'll get to tire in a second. Second reason is to handle the weight of your four-wheel drive, or weight the modifications and camping gear and that add to your four-wheel drive. Factory suspension is not made to handle massive amounts of weight. So once you start adding everything like that, it just becomes too much stress on it. And the third reason is aftermarket suspension is more capable of handling off-road conditions. You know, divots, corrugations, big ruts that it can flex through, all those things. So it'll handle those off-road conditions. They're probably the 3 main reasons for getting suspension. And an important point to consider with your suspension is you have to work out what else you're going to get so you can get the right weight rating for your suspension, okay? So you need to say whether you're also going to get a BULLBAR and a winch, because they'll determine what weight rating you're going to get at the front of your four-wheel drive. And then down the rear, you need to say, you know, am I putting a massive draw setup in a wagon? Am I putting a train canopy on a ute? And then you can get the right weight rating suspension for that as well. Otherwise, once you put it all on, you're just going to have to change it again in a few months. Alright, now they've got our suspension and raised our four-wheel drive up a couple of inches, we can fit our off-road tyres, which is always an exciting one. Definitely gives your four-wheel drive a much tougher look, and those tyres will be ready and prepared to handle those tough off-road conditions. Your road tyres well, Dad's four-wheel drive. When we first took that out four-wheel drive and road tyres, we busted two on the first outing out of local state forest. We pierced two road tyres and we had to limp it back home after we changed one, then realised another one was leaking air out of it as well. Mud tyres or proper aggressive all-terrain off-road tyres, if you're doing, you know, maybe decent amount of road driving but then some off-road driving as well, will have thicker sidewalls, thicker ply. I think these are a 10 ply, so it's going to take a lot more to break and bust them, and they're much tougher. I've always gone mud tyres just because we do a lot of tough four-wheel driving, and they're got the grip and traction that they need for that. You can air them right down and they'll handle it. But as I said, if you're doing a bit of off-roading and a bit of on-road, you know, just driving to work down the highway, all that sort of stuff, you might consider a set of 50-50 all-terrain tyres. With mud tyres, the noise has never worried me. I got that many other things that are noisy. The main thing I notice with them is when they start to wear out, they get quite slippery in the wet. That would be the main negative I've noted on mud tyres. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't head out on any big trips or decent four-wheel driving with road tyres. They're just not up to it. Number 10 is a UHF radio. Means you can communicate to your mates when you're out in a group four-wheel driving. You can communicate to other people when you're out on tracks. Let others around you know what's going on. I've never had to do it, but I've heard numerous stories of them being able to save people when they're stuck in a sticky situation. So you put out a call for help over the radio, and if anyone else is out in the local area, they'll hopefully pick you up and they can come, you know, help you out if you're broken down or stuck in a bog hole or whatever it be. So they're really good communication and safety modification. So in-cab UHF, and then I got the aerial on the bonnet to give that distance for it to travel as well. Number 11, I know it just got past 10, but I got two more to go. Number 11 is a BULLBAR. You may want to move this up a little bit depending if you're doing a lot of night driving or outback driving. BULLBAR will give the front end of your car protection from animal strikes, which I've never had happen, but it gives me a lot of protection out the bush when I accidentally knock into trees or rocks or, you know, steep banks or whatever it be. So it helps give a increased approach angle and protection all around this front end. It's also a place to mount your accessories, so your lights, your UHF aerial, and your winch. Now I'll add winch in with the BULLBAR number 11. I think it's worth getting a winch at the same time you get your BULLBAR, because it'll be much easier to mount up then when you do it all at once. Winch is a great piece of recovery equipment and safety, especially if you're doing solo stuff, and it's got me out of so many sticky situations that, you know, one time if you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere, winch can be the difference of you getting home safely, or, you know, being stuck out there and having to do who knows what to get yourself home. Final one at number 12 I'm going to mention. Now this is more a camping one, so if you're more or just a camper and not a four-wheel driver, you may want to move this up your list a bit, is a dual battery system. So to run your fridge when you're away, camp lights, charge your phone or laptop or camera gear on the road, whatever it may be. But it's definitely a great one for keeping you outdoors and exploring for longer. Alright, we'll end it there because that's sort of the top 10. Well, I did go a couple more, but about the top 10 modifications you should consider when you're getting a four-wheel drive to help keep you and your vehicle safe and get you further off-road and out to exploring amazing places. There's obviously a whole heap more in the next category. It's a never-ending modification cycle and consideration of what you can do next to your four-wheel drive. You know, things like lockers, roof rack, tunes, engine upgrades, tray and canopy builds, the list goes on. You'll definitely spend the rest of your life diving into your bank account if you're into four-wheel driving and camping. And as I said, this was a bit of a personal preference list for me. It's going to change depending on the type of four-wheel driving and camping that you do, but I'd love to hear people's own lists and ideas, so let me know. Let's sort of share all our ideas around and then we can help learn from each other. One other thing I just thought of is, remember this is modifications to your four-wheel drive, not actually gear to take four-wheel driving. So things like recovery gear, first aid kit, air compressors, I've done them in a separate video. I'll pop the link down below of 15 important items to take with you four-wheel driving and camping. Okay, done. Back with another video. Back with another lockdown video. Back with another lockdown video. Today's video we're going to look at the top 10 mod. So I thought I'd just do a video. The first thing I always recommend, starting with the first one you should get, starting with the factory, your factory fuel filter will have, car went into limp mode because it was sucking water down the engine. You know, snorkels help your engine breathe better. Snorkels help your engine breathe better. So that's the engine protection. So that's sort of your main engine protection. So I recommend, you know, means you can communicate to your mates, means you can, and then the final one. Alright, we'll end it there because this was sort of the top 10. Well, I did go a couple more. Alright, we'll end it there because this was the top 10. Alright, this is our moment. Always on the grind till the sun come on us. They can never control us. Running for the prize, raise high for the toast.